From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report. We're counting down the top 10 things that make us go wow. I'm Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, with James St. James, editor of the Wow Report. Hello. ASMR, yes. And Tom Campbell, our
Hello.
Chief Creative Officer.
James is having technical difficulties. He says that he's hearing everybody's voice echoed. I don't know if it's the microphone system or James's natural synapse at this point in his life.
I think it might be the Quaaludes I took right before the show started. They're just kicking in.
Well, before maybe Mercury's in retrograde.
Usually is.
Let's start the countdown. Number 10.
Number 10.
I want to get right into Divorcegate. Now, this doesn't have to do with Matt Gaetz, the child rapist, or it doesn't have to do with the fact that Ben Affleck was seen with J-Lo after her breakup with A-Rod. It's Divorcegate. Bill and Melissa Gates announced they're divorcing. Now,
after 27 years,
those are two people I could care less about in terms of like marriage and romance, until they announce a divorce, and suddenly I'm Googling, I'm finding out how long they've been together, which is they've been married 27 years, but together as a couple for 34 years. I realized that they're just about my age, or she is, and she met him like in 1987 in Seattle at some like, I don't know, nerd computer beyond.
They were playing Clue. They
They
were playing a game of Clue, I think, and
Yeah.
she won, and that's when he realized he wanted to marry her, is what the story I heard.
I like that. All it took was her to figure out was the Miss Scarlet with the lead pipe in the library. He's like, this woman's got a brain on her shoulder. She's going far. Now, I'm so tacky, but you know, there's a lot of money at stake. So are they richer or poorer than like Bezos, Jeff Bezos?
Bezos is like 154 billion, and they're 127 billion. So it's going to be probably the second costliest divorce in history, because she didn't have a prenup.
And obviously, they created the Bill and Melissa Gates Foundation, and they do great stuff for the world. At least they say they do, and I have to believe them. So how will this affect all of that? We'll be able to work together. And the only thing I can think of as a single man with cats is if you're going to get married, if you're going to get divorced after 34 years of being together, 27 years of marriage, is there someone else involved? Is there a Lauren Sanchez in Mr. Gates' life? And why does it feel like it has to be his life? Like he's making room for someone else? Do you feel that suspicion?
You would think that after 34 years, that like anything can roll off your back. That like what is so bad that after 34 years you can't deal with it at all. I mean, like if he snores, you've gotten used to that after the first year. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing that like if you put up with someone that long, then you can put up with them the rest of your life probably, unless there is a cheating situation.
Or live separate lives very easily, like with the wealth and amount of homes and the common interest.
She can go to Morocco, and he can stay in,
so
Silicon
we're not
City.
These two very sexy people, Bill and Melissa Gates. We'll get to the bottom of this. I have to say, I've seen lots of memes. I think I've seen drag queens who change their last name to Gates now because they think they're like Bill Gates is going to be.
They're right. I saw that I saw something that Melinda was dating Pete Davidson already. And then I saw Melinda, and she was in front of a Mac, and it was like Melinda buys her first Mac because she was never allowed to, because he was always Microsoft.
So it's always sad when people break up. This one's going to be a divestiture like we have not seen, and I'm waiting for the other high heel shoe to drop, if you will.
Oh, you can read more about these divorces and splits on the Wow Report. What a smooth transition that was.
It's almost like you were listening to us the whole time and you weren't, Fenton. But
I tell you, I can't really say what it is. There's a legal storm incoming. It's just been like going on for a while with complicated thing that's trying to be worked out.
So are you emailing legal notes while we're on the
A
air?
little multitasking.
I did call him earlier, and he snapped at me and said, "I am dealing with legal. I can't take this right now, James." So it must be bad because you've been like this all day long.
It's funny though, because James, you showed up at home today, and I was like, "Why did you show up at home? Why didn't you just call?" And you were like, "My phone." So it's like it is.
I would never just show up on your doorstep unless there was a problem.
I wish you would more often, but I think it makes you realize like how we are completely dependent, not only on our phones, but on this technological. Like, you know, we are lost souls without without the internet, without our cell phones, without Wi-Fi. It's like, you know,
I had a charging problem yesterday, and it put me into a dark hole for 2 hours.
Your computer kept on charging and turning on and turning off. Apparently that's been fixed, right?
It got fixed, but I made an Apple Store appointment at the Beverly Center, a very brave thing, on Thursday. Anyway.
You're going to Virginia Spa?
Yes, in person.
Mm-hmm. Well, good luck with that. Okay, we're doing the countdown. We're counting down the top 10 things that made us go, wow. We've done number 10. We're now on to number 9.
Number 9.
James.
Number 9. You know, I've been watching a lot of Svengoolie. I don't know if we've talked about this. Svengoolie is kind of like an Elvira type character. He has a television show. He's had it for 30 years. He started in Chicago, and he plays really bad B movies from the 50s and 60s, horror films. And then in between, he does little skits, and there's like a little skeleton and a rubber chicken that are his co-hosts. And it's very silly. And it's on Saturday nights at 8:00, and I do it every week. And this week they had a new restored copy of The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, the great Don Knotts classic. You got to know this, Tom. Because I've gotten nothing from you. I'm getting a blank.
I was getting a text I was looking at. We're terrible. I'm all on you.
Can someone pay attention to the damn podcast?
Ghost and Mr. Chicken is when Don Knotts.
When both of you are MIA? Is it just me carrying the whole damn thing?
We're shooting in the middle of the afternoon. We should be doing this at the end of the day. Anyway,
let's try this again. The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, a new print. Tom,
a new print of The Ghost and Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts, where he has to spend a night in a haunted house to prove that it's not haunted.
Yes, Don Knotts there's a ghost in a haunted house, and he goes and spends the night in the haunted house, and then nobody believes him, and he writes this whole yes. And there's the organ with the covered in the bloody fingerprints, and there's a couple great lines in it that they keep going back to over and over again. There's one, there's the town drunk, and you never see him, but you always hear him say, "Attaboy, Lou." And he keeps saying, like, "Attaboy." And I think that's where they got Barney on The Simpsons, because it's this running joke. And then there's another joke about how they can't wash the blood stains out. And all the old women keep saying, "And they used Bon Ami." And that's like this sort of running joke again. Bon Ami was this thing. Anyway, but the whole point of this is that the theme song to The Ghost and Mr. Chicken was by the great Vic Mizzy, who did the Munsters. He did the Addams Family. He did the Green Acres theme. It's this 60s fantastic. I hope we can play it going out, because it sounds like the Munsters, but it's 60s organ with like 60s psychedelic. It's so good. And the music in it is just absolutely fantastic, and I want to get the album or the CD or whatever.
As a kid, I saw that because it was perfect, because it's very juvenile in its humor, correct?
Yes.
Even though it's made for adults, and it has scary stuff too. So when you're like 5 or 6, that's like an excellent combo. And I do remember there's a portrait of a beautiful woman, and someone I feel like there's pliers that are thrown. Yes,
he comes downstairs, and there's pliers and blood streaming from the portrait.
Comes out of the portrait. That's have stuck with me to this day. I can have nightmares about that tonight.
You know, because Don Knotts, after he did, the Andy Griffith Show, he went on to do The Incredible Mr. Limpet, and he did like something like The Fastest Gun in the West, or like some Western, The Apple Dumpling Gang. He did a whole bunch of
Disney stuff. But the Mr. Limpet thing, I believe he was married to Carol Cook, the actress who was Lucy's backgammon partner in Mr. Limpet, where he falls into the ocean and becomes a fish. He wishes he was a fish, and half the movie is animated. With Don Knotts
yes.
as a fish.
Yeah. So it was a really fun thing. I wish everyone could see it. Don Knotts is a hero of mine.
I have no idea what any of this is about. It's crazy.
You know who Don Knotts is, right? From Andy Griffith's show. He's the bug-eyed guy. He was after Mr. Roper on Three's Company. He was a rubbernecky old guy.
He was a landlord on Three's Company. He was very fey. I read recently in some bad Facebook meme that you know why everybody in Mayberry RFD was so happy? Because they were all single. Andy, Barney, Aunt B, Opie. The only one who was married was Otis Campbell, the town drunk, and he was always drunk. So being single is the key to happiness.
Well, the other thing about this movie, though, is that he filled it. All the characters in it are character actors from Bewitched, from I Dream of Jeannie, from all the great 60s. There's Aunt Hagatha and Steve. The second Darren is in it. I mean, like you recognize every single supporting actor in it from television in the 1960s. It's just fantastic.
Awesome. All right. Number 8. Last week, Drag Race Down Under started. More of that later in the show. But I want to talk about a bit of a scoop. May 30th, Drag Race España will premiere on May 30th. It's
Claro que no.
Are we? I mean, are we? Well, that's not even French. I mean, Spanish. Anywho, I'm very excited about Drag Race España. It's going to be hosted by, let me see, Supreme Deluxe, Anna Locking, and the two Javiers, also known as Los Javis. Now, the two Javiers are their partners, their boyfriends. They met, I think, in 2010. So they're long-term lovers. They're both called Javier Ambrosi and Javier Calvo. And they're both incredibly good-looking. They are both actors. And they met and fell in love. And then they created together Veneno, the incredible Veneno, right? Hit. Have you watched it,
Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Have you watched Netflix show about a very famous transgender performer, right? In Spain.
Yes, it chronicles the life of Spanish entertainer and trans pioneer Cristina Lavenina Ortiz. And the show was groundbreaking when it came out. It was very inclusive of many trans actors and is based on a true story. And it's like those in the know, absolutely. I must confess, I've only watched a couple of episodes. I haven't watched the whole series. But everybody says this series is incredibly amazing. And I guess I'd heard things about Veneno, but hadn't joined the dots that it was created by these two boyfriends. And these two boyfriends are two of the judges on Drag Race España. It's incredibly cool and exciting. It's like having the Brokeback Mountain dudes on Drag Race, and they're in post-production now, and they've been shooting it. And it just, the whole color palette, the whole look and feel is just, it's got a sort of Almodovar energy to it,
I can't wait. This will be the third non-English language version because we have obviously US, we have Canada, we have Down Under, English, yes. And then we've had Thailand, Holland, and now España. This is very exciting.
But wait, doesn't the Chile one, does that count as part of?
The Chile does. I mean, the Chile one is called The Switch, Drag Race, but technically, I guess it's the Chilean one was the first non-English speaking.
Right. Which
But
is more of like a reimagining. It's great, but it's more of a reimagining. These others are a little closer to the format. But again, each one takes on its own personality. I mean, it's really about the format is great and it works everywhere, but it's all about the queens, the local queens.
Yeah. I can't
About
wait.
the queens, but I'm very excited about these two judges because they're real life lovers, they're gay, they're actors, they're producers. It's like I guess I got a bit of a crush here going on.
Do we think that in a week you'll be announcing their WOW Presents show?
Ooh, that would be good, wouldn't it? Yes.
Book them, Dano.
Mm-hmm. So there's the plug. Drag Race España officially launching May 30th on WOW Presents Plus worldwide, excluding Spain, because in Spain it's going to be on Attrez Player Premium. So sign up now on WOWPresentsPlus.com. All right, should we take a quick question from Blake and then a break?
Let's do it. I learned this one on Jeopardy, so it's really good. How much? What?
Someone's been reading.
How much does it cost to produce a penny?
So good.
All right, you're listening.
How much does it cost to produce a penny, Haney?
I'm trying to think of something to do with spending a penny. Anyway, I'm not going to do it. Okay, you're listening to the WOW Report on Radio Andy Sirius XM. We'll have the answer right after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders WOW Report. Things that make us go wow.
All right, welcome back to the WOW Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake. And we had a question.
Yeah, I learned this one on Jeopardy the other day. How much does it cost to produce a penny, Hanny?
I'm going to say 2 cents.
Okay.
I was going to say like a penny and a half or something. What?
Fenton? Not a pence.
I guess it's a tenth of a penny.
No, it is 2 cents. So it's double the cost to produce.
So you're losing money every time you make a penny. Why don't we just get rid of pennies altogether? I just don't understand.
Hasn't that been like a discussion for a while? Like, should we get rid of pennies?
Sure.
I don't know.
I tell you, I've not gone to the ATM in over a year. Like,
do they still have pennies in England?
Do we have? Yeah, I think we have pennies. I think we do.
Hay pennies, half pennies.
Oh, hay pennies. No hay pennies. No.
Is that since the 19th century they've been gone?
But since you raised the subject, we used to. Do you hear a threepence? We used to have a threepence.
Yes. Is that
Love
3 pennies?
Threepence. Yes, there's 3 pennies, and then there was a sixpence too.
Like 6 pence, none the richer.
Right. And of course, none of it makes any sense because that was all pre-decimalization.
If you haven't got a penny, then a halfpenny will do. If you haven't got a halfpenny, then God bless you.
We're
kind of
down.
there. Or was that the echo in my microphone?
Oh, it cured it, right? Like your microphone's like having the hiccups. You know. We're counting down top 10 things that made us go wow, and we've reached number 7.
Number 7.
Guys, I'm famous for my rest in peace segments, but we lost a great actress this past week, Olympia Dukakis.
Oh.
And, it's crazy. And the reason that these things, because, Olympia Dukakis is not top of mind for me. I don't have posters of Olivia Dukakis in my house now. Nor
I wish you did.
Nor did I have them growing up. But she gave a number of just outstanding performances. She was an incredible ally without being sort of brassy or noisy about it to the gay community during the AIDS crisis. I saw very few. My parents went to very few movies in their adult life. They just wasn't a thing they did. They stayed home, watched TV, and watched things there. But they came to visit me, I think in '87, and we went and saw Moonstruck as a family. And what a great movie Moonstruck is, and Cher steals all the thunder as well. She should. But Miss Olympia Dukakis won an Oscar that year too for Best Supporting Actress. And you remember she's sort of this frustrated housewife a bit, Cher's mother, and she ends up, and her husband's having an affair with Anita Gillette, which is a name that will only resonate with me and RuPaul probably. But and she goes out on a date of her own with the actor who played Frasier's dad. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And she, at the end of the day, decides not to have an affair with him. But like, and she has that great line, which I'll butcher, but she's like, so, you know, like when Nicolas Cage finally proposes to Cher at the end, and it's all over in the craziness, and he goes, but do you love him? Do you love him? She goes, yeah, Ma, I love him like hell. She's like, oh no, because once you love somebody, you're in for kind of like a life of heartache.
Is Olympia Dukakis' husband in Moonstruck? Is it Danny Aiello?
No, Danny Aiello is the uncle, isn't he?
Did he pass away this week too?
No, Danny passed away a long time ago.
Okay, because somebody would put that up there. I thought it was old, so he's passed. She also was in Steel Magnolias, the movie, which I kind of poo-pooed at the time, but I've seen on television, and I have wept copiously. And that scene where Sally Field almost wins her third Oscar, where she's, you know, it's the funeral, and she's so upset that Shelby's dead. And, you know, and she's crying and weeping and out of control. So Olympia Dukakis' character says, here, hit her. And she pulls up Shirley MacLaine's character, goes, nah, just really hit her hard. She goes, what are you, crazy? She goes, come on, give it to her. Just amazing. And she had a huge role. I've never really seen the Tales in the City.
It was an anagram. It was an anagram for something. Anyway, keep going. Yeah. Mrs. Madrigal.
There you go. I will just relay these condolences via Twitter from Cher. Wrote this hours ago, but didn't hit tweet. Sad face. Heard Olympia was so sick. Called her daughter and said, could I talk to her? She said she might not hear or speak. I called into the receiver. Olympia, it's Cher. Love you. Remember Moonstruck? She said, oh, Cher, I love you. She was weak but happy. Oh, Cher. And then Dolly Parton, who's also with her in Steel Magnolias, said, and I think this really sums up a lot of our relationships in life, which is like, she says, I was so sorry to hear that Olympia Dukakis had passed away. She has been one of my favorite people that I've ever known or worked with. I really got very close to her and felt like we were good friends. Even though I didn't get to see her much, I thought of her often and knew that she was such a quality human being. She'll be missed by her fans, her family, and for those of us who are lucky enough to get to know her personally. There's so many people that kind of fit that category, people you've come across in life who have impressed you so much, who you've had such a bond with, and then life moves on, but it doesn't take, you know, think about the people you think about often, but don't really stay in touch with. And it just, I don't know.
Isn't it that beautiful saying about people who leave footprints in your heart or something?
Yeah, I get corny, but rest in peace, rest in perfection, Olympia Dukakis.
I'm a little shocked that you did Cher impersonation, but not a Dolly impersonation.
Oh my gosh, I feel bad. I need to do a feel. I guess there was no place to giggle. There was no place to giggle. Thank you.
Rest in perfection, Olympia Dukakis. Moving on to number 6, James.
Number 6.
Well, I know we aren't supposed to talk about it because I've just been told not to talk about it by a number of people, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because Janet Mock had a bit of a breakdown this week at the premiere of the Pose season 3. People are evenly divided on Twitter, whether this is the most brilliant thing she's ever done, whether it was fabulous and by God, call out the shit when you see it, or whether she crossed a few lines and she might have hurt her career a little bit. She took the microphone and started immediately talking about the quality of writing on the show and how it had gone to shit and how irritated she was with that. And she called out Ryan Murphy for I don't know what she called him out for, but she called out Hollywood for its bullshit is what she said. She's tired of the effing bullshit of Hollywood. And all of that, yes, call out Hollywood for its bullshit, call out quality of writing if you're on a show and you see it going downhill. All of that's fine. Then she called her boyfriend and she said, Angel, stand up. And then she proceeded to tell him that she cheated on him with one of the crew members of the show. She fucked
somebody in the crew.
With somebody. And she
cheated on her boyfriend, who's a cast member of the show.
Yes, she cheated on her boyfriend, but and called him, like, had him stand up, and he thought she was going to say how much she loved him, and instead she said, I cheated on you with one of the crew members, and I'm not ready to leave you, blah blah blah. But it's sort of like, keep your messiness off of the microphone, maybe.
It's
the
hard
other
to know
thing,
if you were drunk or had
we
a psychotic
we don't know any
break.
of that. We don't know. But then the thing that really got in my craw, that really stuck in my craw, was when she started complaining that she only makes $40,000 an episode. How dare they pay me $40,000 an episode? And I don't know. I think I would be pretty happy to be paid $40,000 an episode for a cable show when it's your first job in the industry. I mean, you really, it's a hard thing to.
And some are, it's been underreported, to your point. Forget about Twitter for a second, but even different press outlets like Page Six, which can be a little scandalous, sort of broke it down as like a major meltdown, major faux pas, that she was immediately regretful, that it does, she has a big deal at Netflix, which Ryan Murphy helped her get, which she's developing other programs with them. I know, as somebody who works.
My point is that you signed the contract that said $40,000 an episode, and that was the time to negotiate, and that was the time to say, I believe I'm worth more than that. I don't know that anybody really is worth more than 40,000. And if you start making 100, $1 million, $2 million, then that's just frosting, and you should be happy. But I think that 40,000, nobody should be complaining about 40,000 an episode.
Right. And I think it's been kind of underreported, swept under the rug a little bit, because I don't think anybody wants to kill the dream. I mean, what Ryan Murphy and Janet Mock and Our Lady J and all those producers.
Oh, that was the other thing. She also admitted to throwing Lady J under and treating her poorly to try and make herself feel
trans
better.
writer that she had been diminishing her all throughout.
Yeah.
But it's just, you hate to judge someone by their worst moment, and you don't,
True.
Whether Janet is or has taken upon the mantle of being like a role model for all trans people. I think it's too much for any person to take. Never be a pillar of what you do. Just be a worker among workers, because
I think of myself as a bit of a pillar, and I don't have a problem with that.
But no, you're a pill, darling. You're a pill. It's very different.
But anyway, it's just fascinating food for thought. Something to chew on.
Just from an etiquette point of view, you shouldn't call out the show you've produced at your own premiere. It just seems a weird thing to do.
That's the lesson to learn.
Yeah, and like I said,
feelings, don't vent them publicly. And then, I mean, is there I hate to say this, but in this day and age, is there an investigation going on now about the fact that she slept with someone in her crew? That I don't know. It just
I mean that is, I don't know that you should. I mean,
it's a crazy world.
Yeah.
It is a crazy world, but some things are letterbox on said, right? That's what I was brought up. Don't say a thing.
And this is just to say that Pose is back on the air, and I'm watching it, actually. I'm 2 episodes in, so watch Pose.
It's the 3rd and final season, apparently by their own design. So, all right, moving on. Number 8. No. Number 5.
Number 5.
The Innocent. It is a sort of thriller on Netflix. It's actually written by Harlan Coben, who has...
It's my mother's favorite author.
Oh, right. Okay. So he's written lots of books. The Stranger, The Woods, Safe. And he did a multi-year deal with Netflix a few years ago. And the interesting twist is that even though he's American and all his books, I think most of them are set in America, the Netflix idea, or his idea, was to produce these versions of his books. I think they're adapting 12 or 15 of them, but to do each one in a different country. And so this one is set in Spain. Even though it's originally written and set in America, it's now set in Spain. And it's the sort of premises of this guy, Mateo, who was in law school, and he went out with his brother to a club, and there was a sort of fight, and they take it outside, and in the scuffle, he accidentally kills a guy. And life is ruined. He goes to prison. And then after he comes out of prison, rebuilds his life, becomes a lawyer. And then, I don't know, it's incredibly complicated. It's like, I am finding that these a lot of the stories, I mean, it's just hard to follow a lot of the stories. I mean, but it is really intriguing. And so you have one whole episode and it's about him and his wife goes off on a business trip, but then suddenly he's seeing his wife in a hotel room with a stranger wearing a blonde wig, and you're like, what's going on? You don't know what's going on. And then the next episode, even before you found out what's going on, is a totally different character's point of view, and you're in a totally different story, and it's the nun who committed suicide by jumping out of the window of a monastery, except she couldn't possibly have committed suicide, and only at the end does it connect. But it's maddening because you only connected 2 dots, and you've got to keep watching to connect them all. I was sort of hoping.
Is it really that you're having trouble following it, or are you not looking at the screen and looking?
Or are you drunk?
Yes.
No, I
sometimes find that I can't follow the plot of Murder, She Wrote if I don't really pay really close attention.
You should tune into the last 10 minutes because they really ties together in the last 10 minutes. Murder, She Wrote.
I find that, I find this with the MCU, the Marvel character universe, that it's just plots are getting too complicated. Why does it have to be so twisty?
Have to fill up 5 episodes of a Netflix show, you do have to have a lot of plot going on.
Why can't you just wallow in the moment? Why do you have to have plot on a plot on a plot?
I guess people figure this out on their own, but maybe the ratings on movies and stream movies should include this is something you can multi-screen, or this is something that will involve all of your attention. This is something you can bake cookies and do the New York crossword puzzle.
I know exactly what you're saying here. You're saying I'm not paying attention, and that's the problem.
Exactly what we've been saying, but you weren't paying attention while we said it.
Somebody's doing their laundry.
Okay. I mean, have you got on your Netflix? Do you have this button where you can actually speed up the playback so you get through it quicker? Because that's a problem too. Because
I would never do that in a million years.
Oh God! Right. All right. Well, that's The Innocent on Netflix. Let's take a break. Hey, Explant. I'm going to tell you about Explant, which is our new documentary from Wow Docs with Michelle Visage, and we go on her journey to discover what breast implant illness is all about, and it ultimately leads, spoiler alert, to her, it's explant. She has her implants removed. And
fascinating. I can't wait to see it.
It's everything you want to know about breast implants, but
from Michelle's point of view.
It's a very personal. I mean, there's a huge controversy worldwide about the poison of implants still, and Michelle is part of this movement that has sort of self-taught and self-educated about how the toxic nature of it all.
That's absolutely right.
She took a very drastic step. We should have, I'm supposed to be on vacation next week. Who knows if I'll actually do it, but maybe Michelle should come on. You guys should talk about it more.
I'd love to see Michelle.
It's not actually premiering until June the 13th at the Tribeca Film Festival. So we'll have her on.
She can still come on.
It's true. It's true. Might be a bit early. That's
absolutely no Michelle Visage.
Blake draws a line.
I've got a question.
Good.
So I was thinking, since everyone is starting to travel again, I was just like, if you could, how long would it take to fly around the entire world? Like on a commercial airline?
In one non-stop flight, right?
Yep. And this is in hours.
Right.
Oh, not the metric. We're going to deal with the hours.
I was going to do it in minutes. I was going to try and figure it out in minutes.
No, not minutes.
Listening to the WOW Report on Radio Andy, and we'll have the question right after. The answer to the question right after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders WOW Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the WOW Report. I'm Fenton here with John.
Joms? Yes, Joms.
Welcome back to the WOW Report.
That's John, James, and Tom had a child, and we call it Jom.
Jom St. John. With Tom and James St. James. And, of course, Blake, who had a very tantalizing question.
Yes, I asked, if you could fly nonstop around the world, how long would it take in hours?
47.
I think it's 30.
You didn't say nonstop, and I was to tell you from experience because I just flew around the world that I left January 2nd and I returned on May 30th, March 30th. So I think
your arms tired?
What's
Are
that?
your arms tired?
Boy, were they tired.
Well,
I don't know. I'm going to say 41.
James was the closest. It was approximately 51 hours.
Wow. Ding dong.
Which I thought was a long time, but.
Well, no, wait, would Tom be the closest? Because he said.
I said 41.
Yeah.
I said 47. It was 51.
Oh,
we'll do a whole math thing next show. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. We'll do math.
I should go back to school, man. Things baked. Okay, number 4. Counting down.
Number 4.
Okay, my casual sampling of one show has turned into a full-on obsession, and it's on PBS, and it's Finding Your Roots with educator Henry Louis Gates Jr. Mm-hmm. The show is not new. It's been on for many seasons. You know what I'm talking about, James?
This is the one where they do your genealogy for you? Yes.
You don't go all around. There's one that Lisa Kudrow produces, like I forget what it's called, which is also good. But this one, you just come.
That one's called Who Do You Think You Are?
Who do you think you are?
Which came first, Blake? Who do you think you are, or Finding Your Roots? I think Who Do You Think You Are?
I think it did too, but when I was looking at this, researching for today's show, I saw that it has 8 seasons. Finding Your Roots does.
Yes.
So that's a lot.
And they've had RuPaul on. I think that what's really attractive is they do all the research for you, and then you come to them and sit down at this table, and they have this scrapbook that basically, they open like, do you want to see the man who was your great great grandfather? And it's like, yes, I would. Turn the page. And, there's excerpts and things. And most recently, there was one with Jane Lynch and Jim Gaffigan. They do 2 stories, and they cut back and forth. And they both of Irish descent. And you were, there's so many things to learn, but you learned that how horribly the Irish were treated in this country. They were lower than dirt.
No blacks, no dogs, no Irish. We're signs that were all over New York City.
And there were all these ads for, advertisements for like looking for a nanny, must be well kept at no Irish. Yeah. And they were both Irish. There was a settlement in Maine that was heavily Irish where there was insurrection and people fled. They burnt down the town, and Jim Gaffigan's family moved to Iowa to escape that, and you see how family did things. John Lithgow was on recently, and they trace he was like the gold mine because has, which you didn't know, descendants that go back to the Mayflower. He had a great that was on the Mayflower, and you realize that, I don't know, something like 1,000 people on the Mayflower. I'm making up numbers, and half of them died the first winter. So you just start to, in little moments like that, the whole thing, just the little loopholes our gene pool has jumped through or jumped across. And then most recently they had Pharrell Williams and this the wonderful director. She most recently did Harriet, the Harriet Tubman story, and I'm hoping I'm saying her name right, but it's like Kessie Lemons. They're both of African American descent, and
Lemons, yeah.
And Pharrell Williams, it was the first time ever they stopped down and they brought him back because he was so moved. They found back to his slavery to like his great grandfather's sister. And she had been part in the 1930s. She lived very long of like a transcription of her life. And he found out who their slave owner was. They found out how he treated their slaves. At one point, they said, "Do you want to see the face of the man that owned your family?" And it was a picture of this really unflattering, angry picture of this white man. And Pharrell was like, I don't even know what to do. Like, and he's somebody, he admitted, he goes, "I don't like to show my emotions." And and the host is also African American. He goes, "I'm angry." He goes, "You should be angry." He goes, "I don't know where to put this rage." He goes, "You should be," like he was just very supportive, but he couldn't respond emotionally. And he's like, "I have to stop because I am a humanitarian. I love people. I always find something to love about them. And in this moment, I'm filled with hate and rage." And it was just like, ooh. Again, there was no histrionics, but it was just palpable. And then with Kessie Lemons, they were able to find out through genealogy and research, but basically because she's very light skinned and she's like 48% European, but they were able to figure out because of they deduced because her great grandmother was single but lived next to someone from the plantation, like after slavery. So she was clearly his lover or whatever that relationship, whatever they call that kind of relationship. And then the other thing about her relatives was one was on a plantation. He was treated very badly, but when they went to war, a lot of black slaves were asked to accompany the people they were enslaved to. So he went to war with his master's son, and they were captured in Mississippi, where the Union troops freed the slaves. But he chose to go home to Alabama to be in slavery. And they're like, why? And they're like, well, he had a wife and children. Like this, you just start to through the genealogy, they're able to make all these deductions and suppositions that are so heart-rending from someone sitting at a table and them revealing in rather dry way the results. And it's really moving, and they're available on demand. And I used to always slip by it, kind of like Antique Roadshow, like, oh, that's on again. And now I make a point to watch it. So Finding Your Root.
I have a book. This is from my mother's side of the family that traces our genealogy back to, it starts with Barnabas Ellis. You can't read it, but a man named Barnabas Ellis, who in 1769 gets married to this woman, and then he fights in the Revolutionary War. And he was my great grandfather, I guess, was 5 times. And so it traces from Barnabas Ellis all the way down to me and my sister. And it's really fascinating to go through and all the different people. Like, you can go online now and type in the 2 names and find out what they were doing. And there was like a governor in North Carolina, one of the first governors. It's just fascinating. I just love all that stuff. I really get into those. And I think maybe as an adopted person, I find it even more interesting, because it's just sort of like, I don't know. So I love all that.
All these episodes have been amazing. The Pharrell and the Cassie Lemons one, I was breathless watching it. Like, I was like on the edge of my seat, not knowing what was going to happen next.
Wow. Watch Finding Your Roots on the PBS app or at pbs.org. By the way, I will just say that Who Do You Think You Are started in the UK in 2004. And so that's also, if you like that kind of thing, you might enjoy that series too. James, number 3.
Number 3.
We have some news of the weird. A female prisoner who smuggled a gun into the county jail when she was beginning her sentence, and they discovered the gun in her vagina.
I knew we were going there. Yeah.
Yes. Her name was Amy Willett. She pleaded guilty to sneaking the revolver into the Boone County Jail. The firearm was fully loaded with 5 rounds when she brought it into lockup. And she said she was bringing it for another prisoner, but all the other prisoners said no, it was hers. I just want to read some of the tweets that people went a little bananas on this story. Her body, her choice. If it fits, you must acquit. How fitting for a woman of that caliber. That's a pea shooter, said someone. Is that a gun in your vagina, or are you happy to see me? What if she just forgot it there with her keys and other stuff? Said so. She likes to bang. Wow, talk about vaginal discharge.
Oh.
Always keep your gun lubricated. It's a pistol. Get it? Like that is one big vagina. Was it cocked? And
she put the P in pistol.
Gun smuggling is not cool, but I do admire her creativity, said another person. So that was just a very quick news of the weird. We can move right along.
Well, you can read this and other quality news items on the WOW Report. Okay, number 2.
Number 2.
That's a tough one to follow, James. But I will just say it is spring on WOW Presents Plus, and I wanted to talk with Tom a little bit about Drag Race Down Under, because we haven't really been able to talk about it, and how it was received. It just started last week. The Australian queens. Oh my God, they're so.
And the New Zealand queens. It's a combo. It's a combo platter.
Of course, that's great, right? Yes, that's great, right.
But they are rude and free of tongue and fabulously campy and just a black unfiltered would be the proper way of saying it, but they really go for it without being. I don't think they're also dastardly mean. I just think that's the way that's the currency. But like,
they are so mean, but they all love it. They love being mean to each other.
That's what I mean. Like, they can take it. They can take it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's like, a bit like the Brits. You know, I mean, the Brits will insult you, and if you can take it, then they love you. You know, I mean, that's just how British drag queens are.
Yes. It's Tom, when we were sitting there watching them tape it, you sort of maybe get used to it, or you tend to forget how I just thought, people are going to be like, oh, that's nice. But some of the reviews were just, oh my gosh. It was like almost when you get an old crown of jewels and you're cleaning it off and suddenly it's sparkling in a way that you don't remember. I'm talking about my tiara,
I always feel like when we the part that the control room that we see and produce is mostly the judges panel and thing. It's sort of the set pieces. What you don't get to see until it's on the air, of course you're watching cuts and but with the other half of the story are the confessionals and the workroom, verite. And everyone knows this, but you can win RuPaul's Drag Race in drag, or you can win it out of drag. You know what I'm saying? Like your boy drag and your boy persona, that's 50% of the show at least. So people fall in love with both sides, and to see both, I think, is part of the magic of the show.
You just never know how people are going to take it. That's it.
Yes.
It's sort of when it's out of context and when it's sort of other people see it, it's quite, you're like, oh yeah, wow. James, have you partaken?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I'm gonna sort of do it this weekend. I'm gonna do a binge.
Well, you can give us a cold slap of reality, but it seems to be pretty well received. No secret and no shame, but it's a lower budget production than we've done in the UK, even much lower than the US. But there's something, and I said it already to the show, but it's something about the format that translates or it works with different people. And then there's something about drag and drag queens that just are so, they're resourceful and they make it work and they're entertaining and they give their all. And there's what's nice is that Drag Race is kind of a worldwide thing. Drag queens kind of respect it and look up to it. So just them being there, their level of excitement and commitment to really going for it's not an easy show. You have to really put yourself out there, and they do it. And I really think that's what comes through is the stakes are, it's a silly competition show, but the stakes are that they're there to win. They're in it 110%. And that's really, it's just fun to watch creative people, going for it.
So that's a nice addition for spring, and it's on WOWPresents Plus. Other shows, there's Priyanka, What's My Game? The winner, of course, of Drag Race Canada, Season 1. Raven and Raj's Fashion Photo Review, special Drag Race Down Under edition. Losing is the New Winning, where we each week, one of the queens from UK Season 1 returns to talk about their journey post Drag Race. Gothy Kendall is the first guest, and so much more. So let's take a break. Okay. No question this time, right?
No
question.
Same
all right, you're listening to WOW Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders WOW Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the WOW Report. I'm Fenton here with James and Tom, and we've been counting down top 10 things that make us go wow. And of course, we've reached number 1.
Number 1.
What's a terrible confession to make? We all fight for our own slots. Mine are 10, 7, 4. James's are the others. But we all are very dismissive of what is number 1, which is the pièce de résistance of the show. It's what keeps thousands.
Should be the most important. Yes.
Millions of people stay tuned. They're hovering on freeways. They're waiting in their garage. They're risking asphyxiation just to hear what's number 1.
And yet, none of us will figure it. None of us will bother to figure it out. Do we have anything? Because I had
you chose the number 1, James.
I pitched number 2, but I never heard back from either of you. So I figured that it.
I got back to you, and I thought that the second one you wanted to do
was it Caitlyn Jenner.
Yes,
I think it's Wicked Witchy Poo.
Well, are they that different? Are they that different?
To Fenton, number 1 is the great Billy Hayes died this week, who was famous the world over in real icon of children's television. She was Witchy Pooh on HR Puff and Stuff, and she was also the genie on Lidsville. She also had a stint on General Hospital in the 80s for a long time. She was sort of beloved on that as well. And just you'd recognize her immediately if you saw her. She was sort of an older woman, but she was very spunky and very sort of butch in a way. She was on the Monkees. She was on Broadway a lot. But the other big story of the week is that Caitlyn Jenner dropped her first political ad, and it is a doozy. She go ahead,
the
Tom.
Ad is a mountain of emptiness.
Yeah.
She speaks in cliches like, let's put the gold back in the Golden State. And what kills me the most, because we know where she lives and what her house looks like because of the Caitlyn show on E! The whole thing is lots of footage of, a lot of B-roll that they bought from some company. But she is in her house and on the top of that mountain in Malibu. That's it. And
looking down from her mountain.
She is so alone. And she's talking about, money for families that are dealing with kids in preschool. Like, she has no idea what that life is. And she just sticks to that stupid, pat Republican. I want, fiscal responsibility, social, liberal, follow the Constitution, blah, blah, don't raise my taxes, shit. And she's just the worst. And I'm hoping that I can't imagine, and I know her sons have come out against her campaign. I can't imagine, and the Kardashians have said nothing and aren't really that into it.
Well, the gay community is not going to vote for her. The Republicans are not going to vote for her. The Democrats are not going to vote for her. Is there anybody out there who is thinking, "Yay, let's elect Caitlyn"?
You know who I bet could save this?
Who?
Kendall with the Pepsi.
Yeah.
She just handed us.
If Kendall would just give some Republicans a Pepsi, then everything would be okay. She goes on a bit about how when she was in the Olympics and this and that. But then earlier this week, she came out against trans children in sports, which is where do you stand? Where do you stand on these things? If there were no trans people in sports, you never would have been in the Olympics.
She's very confusing. It's funny, and I have to admit, my experience is that when Caitlyn came out as trans, it changed the conversation around trans, and more trans things have come to the forefront, and trans programming and all that happened around the same time, and somewhat because of the visibility that Caitlyn gave it. So I give her points for that. And after that, I find her to be kind of she's
a traitor. She's a horror show. She's just a terrible kind
of self-involved in a way that's not attractive.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that works in politics. I hope it doesn't work this time.
Yeah, and I'm not a Gavin Newsom fan at all. And I know I
vote him out in 2 years. This whole recall thing is ridiculous. It's like,
I find him greasy and weird, and I don't like that he was with Kimberly Guilfoyle. I just find there's just a whole bunch of weirdness with him. I don't like his haircut. I think his haircut is reason enough to vote him out of office.
All right, good, James. That's why the WOW Report will be replaced by James St. James on politics next week. He'll break down the hairdos.
One thing that Janet Marcus said, that Caitlyn does not represent the trans community. So just add that into the mix. That's all we got time for. Thanks for tuning into the WOW Report. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, James. Thank you, Blake. I'll try to do better next time. Same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go wow.
Wow.